Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Jessica and I've had this YouTube channel for a while, but I haven't posted on it in a couple of years, and even when I was posting it wasn't very consistent. So we're just gonna act like we're starting from scratch because I've never posted about knitting, and you likely have found this video because you also enjoy knitting. So welcome to my very first knitting podcast. There will likely be vlogs here and there. I do build things occasionally, my desk being one of them, but I did not create a video for it. But if I do build anything in the future, I will likely have a video for that. But I feel that the majority of my content is going to be knitting because I am obsessed and I would like to talk to other people who are obsessed about it. I'm very excited to start doing podcasts. I think it'll be a great way to workshop ideas. I'm learning. I'm a new knitter, so there's a lot of things that I don't know yet, and I think it'll also be a great opportunity for me to hold myself accountable. My day-to-day, my full-time job is very, very busy and time-consuming at this moment, but I really want to make sure I'm prioritizing knitting and my projects because they bring me a lot of joy and inner peace and calm. So since this is the first podcast episode, I figured I'd share a little bit about myself. I live in Chicago, Illinois with my partner Alex and our 3 animals, my dog Luna and our cats Megatron and Lemon. They are all sleeping in the bedroom somewhere, and they will likely wake up very soon and make a lot of noise. So if you hear anything running around in the background, they are to blame. I am a sales consultant for a catering company in the city for my full-time job, and I also do floral design and wedding coordination part-time. I started knitting about 2 years ago. I bought a kit from Woollen the Gang for a cardigan. Actually, oh my gosh, this cardigan. So while I have been knitting for 2 years, the progress has been slow. So there are a lot of things that I have not done yet. My main goal for this year was to use up as much yarn in my stash as possible. When I became obsessed with knitting, I started to buy yarn as I was watching podcasts on people working on different projects and hearing about different hand dyers and other yarn companies like Knitting for Olive and Sandisgarn, and I wanted to try everything, but I did not have the knowledge or skill set to know how much to buy. Luckily for my bank account, kind of, because I still bought a lot of yarn, I bought small quantities, but I didn't realize how difficult it was going to be to find patterns that use up 1 or 2 or 3 skeins of yarn instead of them being full sweater quantities. So I've been knitting a lot of accessories, a lot of smaller garments, and you'll see that with the things that I am knitting as far as what I've completed and my whips. They are very much tailored towards using the yarn that I have in my stash, either for gift knits or smaller items. So without further ado, I'm just gonna jump into my finished objects. I have 3. For my first finished object, I have the Home Camisole. This is, oh my gosh, look at that beautiful color. So the Home Camisole by Caidree is a DK pattern knit from the top down. It calls for 4mm needles. There's sizes extra, extra small through 5XL, I believe, maybe 3XL. For this one, I knit it in Wandering Flock fingering singles in the color Rainbow Sherbet, and it is just, it's stunning, it's stunning. I knit it with the fingering weight held double to hit gauge. I also used 5mm needles instead of 4mm needles. This camisole is a perfect example of me learning about gauge and also the impact that it makes when you knit with a larger needle size than what's on the pattern. I knit the size small, which is the 3rd largest size that the pattern offers. It says that the finished bust circumference for the size small is 34 inches, which is my bust circumference. However, this is quite big on me. I wear this around the house and I wear it to bed. It's definitely a lounge tank top. What I wanted from this tank top was more of a tighter fitting kind of crop tank. I wonder if I can actually show you what I'm wearing now. Hopefully this works. Okay, yeah, kind of. So this is an outfit that I live in on a regular basis. I do work remotely when I don't have to go in for events or in-person presentations. I really like just like a nice comfy tank to throw on with sweatpants or shorts. So when I found this pattern, one, I love the design. The pattern's written super well. It's a really great staple pattern to have. The pattern also is for a full length tank, not a cropped one. But because I wasn't using DK yarn, I was using fingering held double, I wasn't quite sure how much yarn I would actually need. So I decided to do this one cropped, but as you can see, it's quite large. What you do is you knit the front 2 triangles, back 2 triangles, join them together, and then you knit in the round. Once I had joined them together and started knitting in the round, I realized that this was going to be way too wide. So then what I started to do was decreasing, which is not in the pattern. There's no shaping in the pattern, but again, the way the tank top is supposed to be doesn't require shaping. I was just forcefully adding it where I had no business to add it. I found an article, which I will link in the description box below, just explaining the different kinds of decreases that you can do and which ones you should use depending on the shaping that you're looking for, which was so helpful. The article is fantastic. The way that I applied the information from the article, maybe not that great. But what I did is, because it was large all around, I was like, I'm gonna decrease everywhere. I did decreases underneath the bust, underneath the back in the middle, and then also on the sides. What I didn't know enough about would be the diagonals in which the decreases start to make. You can kind of see here, like the decreases ended up almost running into each other, which is why I bound off. I was like, I don't know what to do now. And it also, as I kept trying it on, I realized there was just gonna be this very large piece of fabric here. So once I got this below my bust and I decreased it a little bit, I was like, I'm just gonna cast this one off and block it and call it a day. That being said, this yarn is gorgeous. It's so beautiful and it's so soft and squishy. I love wearing this to bed. I love wearing it around the house when no one's gonna see me because it's not necessarily public appropriate. I took some swings. They did not necessarily work out, but I was still very happy that I completed this, and it brought me then to start my next finished object, which is another home camisole, but this one fits me way better. Still not perfect. I am gonna be making probably unlimited amounts of these camisoles. I chose a DK weight yarn, which the pattern calls for a DK weight. This is the Grenouille Co DK 8515 in the shade Gormenghast. It was a part of her bioluminescence collection that she did an advent for. I didn't get the advent. I restrained myself from buying any advents because luckily by that time I had amounted so much yarn that I was like, wait, I actually don't know what to do with this. So I didn't purchase any advents, but she did release them for pre-order, which I snagged up 3 different colors because when I saw the advent, when she released them, I was just blown away how beautiful these colors were. So the DK 8515 is 85% superwash merino and 15% nylon. It's a gorgeous yarn. I love this color. I love the variation. I just think it didn't pool anywhere. I was not alternating skeins. That is something that I have not tried yet and don't know enough about. So no pooling. I mean, it looks incredible. For this one, I did knit the size extra small. So one size smaller. There is still a smaller size and extra small, but I did the extra small, which fits really well on the top. But then again, because I am looking for something that's a little more form-fitting around my waist, once I got down to the bust, I did do a couple decreases, but I only did the decreases on the sides instead of under the bust and on the back. And I think I did an increase every 3 or 4 rows as I continued down until I got to the length that I had wanted. And then I cast off and did the I-cord edging, and yeah, I'm very happy with how this turned out. The improvement from this one to this one, so drastic, and I'm very happy with both of them. I learned a lot from both of them, but I still have a ways to go with figuring out the exact shaping. I know that I can just find a pattern that has shaping. I can find a pattern that is for a tank top that is more form-fitting. I have so many of them saved. I just like to make things a little more complicated for myself than I need to. This took about 1 skein of the DK weight yarn, which was another thing that I didn't really think through. I had 3 skeins of the DK 8515 from Grenouille. I was like, fantastic, I'm gonna knit a home camisole and use that amount up in my stash. Finish my home camisole. I only used 1 skein. And I was like, I probably could have picked a more suitable pattern or project that used all of the yarn instead of not even half of it. So from there then I decided to use this yarn to knit myself a pair of shorts. So these are the Lover shorts by La Poule, and it was my first time ever making shorts or bottoms, which was actually a very enjoyable experience. It calls for 3.5mm needles, and I did knit this on 3.5mm needles using the same DK weight yarn. I knit the size small, which is the second from the smallest size, which the small is for 62 to 66 centimeter waist, which is like a 20, what is it? It's like a 25 to 26 inch waist, which is about my waist. However, once I started going, I realized that the waist was going to be too big for how high I need to wear these. So I should have done the extra small. The pattern does have increases after the waist to go out. They're not supposed to be super, super form-fitting. Once I realized that the waist was just going to be too big, instead of me frogging it and restarting with a smaller size, I decided to just not do any of the increases, just knit straight down. As I was trying this on, I realized that if I didn't add in a couple of increases, once I got closer to splitting for the legs, it would be way too tight on my legs. So I did a couple of increases once it got, you can see that, like how it flares out. Once it got closer to splitting for the legs, as well as a couple of increases on the legs themselves. Something that I love about this pattern is this adorable edge, which I didn't do a super great job of. I hope you can see that. So it's a really interesting way to make this like little zigzag edge. I love it so much. It was very easy, but I didn't execute it too well, but I love it. I will definitely make myself another pair of these at some point. But they fit. They are pretty low rise because of the fact that they're wider. They rest on the widest part of my hips. This set together is very cute, even though the crop top is very cropped and the shorts are very low rise. So it's not something I'm going to be posting a picture of myself in at any point, but I do love wearing this. The pattern also says to knit elastic into the waistband, which will likely help my problem with it being too big. I did not have any elastic. I need to just order some so I have some on hand. But the nice thing about this is that the waistband is folded over, so you knit about 8 rows and then you fold it in half, knit it together, similar to like the petite knit Oslo hat construction, if you have ever done that. So very easy for me to add in elastic to this in the future, which I will likely do. Another note that I wrote about this was yarn chicken. I didn't quite understand the yarn amounts. On Ravelry, it says that this pattern calls for a lace weight yarn, and it has a gauge of like 20 stitches per 32 rows. I got that gauge with a DK weight, so I decided to just use a DK weight, but a DK is very different from lace, and I wasn't quite sure how much it would require. The pattern itself calls for about 700 meters or 765 yards. I used about 400 meters or 450 yards of this DK weight yarn. They are short. They are not like a modest short, and the pattern is supposed to be a little bit longer. Also, I think if I were to have knit the proper size where the waist would have hit me at the proper length, the top would have been longer than I knit it to be. I got nervous that I was gonna run out of yarn and have one leg be much longer than the other. So once I reached an okay spot with one leg, it was long enough to cover everything that it needed to. I put those stitches on hold, and then I went over and started the other leg. Once they were even, I decided to just bind off and call it a day because I wasn't sure how far the yarn I had left would stretch. For reference, this is how much yarn I have left, which is actually a good amount of yarn. I can't visualize how far this will go. It's funny because I was just watching Those Twins Who Knit, their podcast, and one of them was talking about how they would weigh their yarn, knit a round, and then weigh it again to see how much yarn was used per round. That would have been a great thing for me to do with this one. However, I did not think about that until after I'd finished. So I do still have a little bit of yarn left. This is gonna go in my scrap bag. I am trying to get through my yarn stash. I will end up with a lot of scraps, but I will find something to do with this at some point. But yeah, just something to note. If you do knit this pattern, let me know if you have, or if you plan on it, what yarn you're planning on using. Because I do want to make myself another pair of these shorts, but I just don't know. I don't know how to know if I have enough yarn for it before starting, you know? Anywho, those are my finished objects. Let's move on to whips. All right, so for my whips, I have 3 currently on the needles. I try to limit myself to 3 whips at a time because I would easily cast on so many projects, but at the pace that I knit at, nothing would ever get done and I wouldn't see any progress and it would be very, very deflating. So I try and limit myself to 3. So the first one that I have is the Moon Bralette by Ullen Knitwear. This is as far as I have it right now. The Moon Bralette is knitted from the bottom up and it calls for a DK weight yarn, about 328 to 656 yards or 300 to 600 meters. The way that this sizing goes is that you knit for your bust measurement. So you basically knit this garter band as long as you need it to be to fit comfortably around your bust, and then she gives you the pickup rate for the stitches to go along the edge to then knit upwards for the cups depending on your cup size. So she has everything from AA all the way to H, and I really like the pattern. I think it's a very simple, easy, adjustable pattern, which is great. I am currently knitting in the round, probably another like 2 more inches, and then I cast off the back, split for the front, and then do the straps. I am choosing to knit the long version. So there's the short version and then there's the longer version. I'm doing the longer one because the yarn that I'm using, I want to use as much of it as possible. So to knit this, I am holding these 2 strands together. So this is the Passion Yarns Baby Love yarn. It's a fingering weight yarn. It is 70% alpaca and 30% silk. This is the colorway Lilac and this is the colorway Iris. This yarn is so soft and it is so squishy and it is just the most incredible thing. I want to wrap my body in it at all times. I just like, Part of me wishes that I didn't do this bralette and instead tried to get a t-shirt out of it, but I only have, so I have 2 skeins of the lilac color and then I have 1 skein of the iris. I picked this up at the Chicago Yarn Con, which I was like, I don't need to go. I have so much yarn, I shouldn't be buying more. But it was at this venue where there's a vintage market all summer long and I go there regularly. So I was like, I'm just gonna pop by. And I fell in love with this yarn. She only had 2 skeins of lilac, which I picked up to buy. And she was like, oh, I'm having a buy 2, get 1 free. So I picked out Iris. I thought it was a really nice complementing color. I thought it also might look cool held together, which I honestly think it kind of does. I really like the marling. I think it's a really, like you see these pops of the iris coming through, which kind of like brightens up the lilac a little bit. It's also got like a really nice, ooh, I don't know how to actually show this. I don't know if you can see like the halo. There's like a little bit of fuzz. There's a good amount of halo. I love it. It's not scratchy or itchy. It's warm and just, I cannot explain how wonderful this yarn is. I'm curious as to how much yarn I will have left. I will probably have a lot of yarn left. I do not think this is going to take too much. I think that I, again, could have maybe made a better pattern choice, but I'm so excited to have this one done. So that is the Moon Bralette by Ullen Knitwear. All right, next up is my shawl. So I am knitting the Spring Shawl by Nelly Fiyal on Etsy. I haven't been able to find this pattern on Ravelry. I found it on Etsy. It's a fingering weight shawl that calls for 500 meters of yarn or 550 yards, and this is knit on 4mm needles, which I am using 4mm needles as well. I didn't bother gauge swatching for this since it's going to be a shawl, but who knows, that could be a huge mistake. So I am knitting this in Woolberry Fiber Co. Berry Merino, the fingering weight, in the color Pressed Flowers, which you can see worked up. It's this really beautiful, like warm cream color with speckles of purples, greens, blues, some yellows. I'm knitting this shawl specifically to wear to weddings. I have a wedding at the end of October in Florida, and honestly any wedding that I go to, I end up getting cold at the end of the night, and Alex always offers me his jacket, which is very sweet, but sometimes I don't want to be wearing like a full suit jacket over my dress, so a shawl is the perfect time to do that. I thought that this yarn would be a really beautiful neutral color that would go with a lot of different dresses that I have. It's not white, it's not too bridal, and this is where I'm at so far. There's like an eyelet edging that I'm doing. I do this for a little bit longer, and then I think I just knit stockinette flat, and then there is this really beautiful lace pattern near the end, which is very beautiful but also doesn't look too intense. I have never done lace work before, so I wanted to try that out, and I thought it was a beautiful, simple design that hopefully I can work my way through. I looked at the chart. I understand the chart a bit. I might not understand it as much as I'm knitting it, but we have high hopes for that. So that is my spring shawl. And then my last whip is the, oh boy, so much more yarn came unwound from the thing. Eva Top by MochiKnits. It looks very odd because it is on my needles, so it's cinching it all together. But I am knitting this in the recommended yarn for the pattern. It's actually how I found this pattern. So the Eva Top, it calls for an Aran weight yarn. It's available in sizes extra small through 3XL. It calls for 6mm needles. I'm using 6.5 to hit gauge. So the actual top itself, it's just a tank top. And it calls for the Tina tape yarn by Woollen Gang, which is 100% lyocell yarn. And it's in the color Eucalyptus, which is also the same color that she knit her project photos in. I bought this yarn on a Black Friday sale from Woollen Gang shortly after I knit that cardigan. I knit the cardigan, I fell in love with it. I had all these ideas, and one of the ideas was a long dress that I could throw on over swimsuits. So I bought 8 balls of this yarn, and it has sat in my stash ever since. So this was one of the main things that I really wanted to use up this year. The wedding that I'm going to in October is in Florida. So it'll be like my last hurrah in a swimsuit for before we enter the dark depths of winter. So I looked up this yarn on Ravelry to see what patterns there were. Found the Eva Top by MochiKnits. It's super cute, and I was like, I can just knit this super long until I run out of yarn is the plan. I'm knitting the size small. As I mentioned, I'm using 6.5mm needles, which is half a size larger than the recommended ones. And so far, it's going great. I did shorten the straps. So as I was knitting the straps, I was like, whoa, these are getting to be very long. So basically, I just kind of measured where it would fall. I'm sure it'll stretch a little bit with blocking, but I think I ended up doing like 12 or 15 rows less than what the pattern had called for the straps. I think that's just because my row gauge is off. I don't actually understand row gauge yet. So my gauge is right, 4 stitches, but row gauge, not quite. And that is easier for me to adjust with the projects I'm working on now because I can just see and try it on and then stop and move to the next step. I'm sure that will not be as easy with more complex patterns. As I said, I'd like to use all of this yarn that I have. So my plan is to knit it until I run out. Who knows what that'll be? It's probably gonna end up being a maxi length dress and I'll still have yarn left over. I plan on, once I have a little bit more of the top done, I might add in a couple of decreases and then increases at the waist, just for a little bit of shaping. I am 5 feet tall, so I find that a lot of times if something doesn't have shaping, it doesn't need to be skin tight, but if it doesn't have any type of shaping, it can look like I'm drowning a little bit. So I might add in some shaping, but we will see once I get to that point. And then I don't think I'm gonna add any shaping around my hips. I do not have that large of a butt. So this fabric is quite stretchy and it's also supposed to be a swimsuit cover up. So I think I'm just gonna knit it straight down and be fine with that. I will continue to try it on. So if I do get past my butt and it's way too tight, I will figure that out then. So that is my Eva Top by MochiKnits, and those are my current whips. Oh my gosh, I was hoping this wouldn't be a super long video, but that's actually it. I don't have any acquisitions. I have not been purchasing any yarn. Okay, so I do want to set a couple of goals for myself to hold myself accountable and aim for between now and the next podcast. There will be a time where I don't have anything to rush for knitting wise, but I have so many projects that I want. I have so many like pieces that I want in my wardrobe, and I will not allow myself to buy the yarn or the patterns until I use the yarn that I have. So I am really trying to get through as much of the yarn that I have as quickly as possible, so then I can get on to those projects that I have been now dreaming about for a while. So my goals for next podcast are to finish my moon bralette, I want it off the needles and have it completely done. I also want to knit at least 4 more inches of this shawl, and then I would love to get the Eva dress down to my waist. So yeah, those are my goals. The Eva dress and the shawl are both items that I would like to bring with me to the wedding that we have in Florida. We leave for the wedding on the 31st. So my goal is to finish those items by like the 29th, so I have time to block them and then I can bring them and wear them in Florida. And I also have a friend's birthday at the end of October, which I'm knitting her an Oslo hat, which will replace this whip once I'm done with it. So fingers crossed that I can finish an Oslo hat, the Eva dress, this shawl, as well as this bralette in like a little over a month. I do also have another friend's birthday. I would love to knit her the Harlow V-neck sweater by Caidree, and I have the yarn for it already. It's sitting in my stash. It would be a great way to use that yarn. I think the color would just look gorgeous on her, and I really would love to give that to her. So whether or not I'll finish that too before early November, not sure. It might turn into more of a Christmas gift. But yeah, I've got lots of plans, lots of things that I want to get through. I also am going to film a fall knitting plans video, which will be a great way for me to go through everything that I really hope to finish by the end of the year and use up a large chunk of my stash. So yeah, keep a lookout for that. Thank you for watching and welcome to my channel. Oh my gosh, I've been wanting to get back into creating YouTube videos and also just you know, make myself a part of this knitting community on YouTube for a while now. And I'm proud of myself for actually taking the steps to do it, because we all do not recognize and give ourselves credit where credit is due when we do things. I feel like it's just on to the next task, which is very much how I run my life, which I'm trying to work on. Very happy to have filmed this. I'm happy that you're here. If you want to see more from me, again, I'll have a podcast episode out in about a month, maybe my fall knitting plans video in between then, but make sure to subscribe. I'll link my Instagram below as well. I am not posting on there very regularly, but I am hoping to do more with that. But we'll see. I'm just kind of taking it day by day. I'm trying not to add too much onto my list because I love knitting and it brings me so much joy, and I don't want to turn it into something that feels more like work. So we'll see, but I will link it down below in case you're interested. And that's it. I don't have like a sign off or anything fun yet, but thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.